What's up? I'm here with Sean McCleary. Sean, just do me a favor real quick. Introduce yourself because there's actually a lot of stuff that I don't know about you. And just give me like how you got into jiu-jitsu and things like that.
Cool. Well, my name's Sean McCleary. I own and operate Schismatic Industries along with my wife, Mary McCleary. So interestingly enough, is like we started the clothing company together, and she is actually the reason that I got into jiu-jitsu. I started in 2014. I was boxing at the time and saw her go into the jiu-jitsu, like the room, because how it was is like our gym was sectioned off. Like you had your boxing side and then closed off, and then it was like the jiu-jitsu room, which was actually quite large compared to the boxing side. But anyway, rest is history. Pretty much told me that if I didn't do jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't see her, and so I decided to put my gi back on and start training, and turned out that I enjoyed it. And that's now I'm here 10 years later and still training. Now we own a school, clothing company, all that. It's gone really well. It's been one of the better decisions I've made in my life. Just the few. Yeah.
So you're 10 years in on jiu-jitsu?
Yes.
This
May will be 10 years.
How long did it take you to get your black belt?
I got my black belt in 6 years and 9 months. No, it was.
Oh, wow.
I was one of those idiots that trained like twice a day, every day.
Right.
Competed every chance I get. It actually, it was annoying to my wife. And she's like, "Okay, we're going out of town like 3 weekends out of the month." I was like, "Yeah, what's the problem?" Yeah, but always going that route, with competing. And I think the coach saw that and took that into consideration. Even though I was like, I still think it was too soon to get it, because I'm still learning a bunch, as it goes. But it was fast.
Now obviously I can't speak specifically to you getting it too early, because I'm still just a brown belt. But at the same time, I'm still like, so I'm 15 years. Like I just passed 15 years, and my upbringing is a little different. Like I had a different coach for every belt. And I'm obviously I'm still learning. As a matter of fact, so I got my brown belt from a guy named Xander Heinen, who is one of Marcelo Garcia's black belts.
Oh, wow.
And that one felt good. Like I like that felt good. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But he told me flat out, like when he gave me that brown belt, he was like, "Dude, this is going to be your hardest belt." And they normally say that like blue and purple are like the hard belts. It's one of those belts is usually the hardest. Yep. And I get why. Blue belt is like you get it because your coach recognizes that you now know how to play jiu-jitsu, but you think that you're somebody special, and then you're constantly just getting your ass whooped. You know what I mean? Yep. Still. And then like, at purple, that's a little scarier because that's the belt where you're supposed to be taken serious. So you put a lot of pressure on yourself because, well, you're a purple belt. And now everybody wants to kill you. Like the blue belts want to kill you because like they want to prove that they're ready for their purple belt. The brown belts know that you know things and they mash you up. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I understand, but he was like, "Dude, your brown belt's going to be your hardest belt." And I would say, I wouldn't call it my hardest belt, but I would definitely say I have done the most growing at this level. There has been a like very heavy, what's the word I need? Like my jiu-jitsu has really formed at my brown belt. Like as far as like how I train, the last year, my jiu-jitsu's gotten so much smaller on as far as like what I use. And I've become super aware of that, and I kind of like it because I've made my jiu-jitsu drastically simpler.
Well, I view that as like, you're specializing, like you're in the grad school of jiu-jitsu belts, right now is I think like, blue belt, you're dipping your toes in. Everybody can get a blue belt, and then, you start forming your game. By purple belt, I always see it as like you've seen just about everything jiu-jitsu has to offer. Like no one's going to show you the Kimura the first time. Nobody's going to show you an arm bar. Different setups, sure.
Right.
Like there's minor tweaks of everything, and then you get honing in purple belt, and then brown belt's like getting you ready for black. Like what are you gonna specialize in? And a lot of the time it's like I think that's paired with a lot of teaching as well. Like I'm with you there. When I got my brown belt, that was my longest belt, and I pretty much had to relearn jiu-jitsu at that point. It's like I didn't take the technique quite as seriously up until that point, because I was fighting mixed martial arts. I was in insane shape, and I would just blow through people in competition with like just cardio and outright strength. And then when brown belt came, it was nobody's a chump anymore when you compete at brown belt, and
Right.
no everybody like there's no more easy rounds, especially with any upper belts or black belts, because like purple, they're like, oh, things. Now it's brown belt, it's even more. And they had technique and the athleticism, and I had to sit back and just pretty much restructure everything. And then that's when I got pretty heavy into leg locks and all that stuff. It's like that's what I specialized in. And like you said, the game got way smaller but way sharper. It's like how to get whatever whatever you're specializing in, you're gonna actively work to get there. It's like you still learn new things. But as far as like how to do your A game.
Right. So you said you were competing a lot. Did you compete from like starting at white belt level?
So I never got the chance to compete at white belt. I got my blue belt in 4 months. And that
okay. What kind of, you tell me about that. I want to know about that.
So it's like I was hard in the paint, like in the beginning. I had dabbled. So saying like I was a day one white belt is not exactly the whole truth. I fought mixed martial arts, or at least trained I started fighting mixed martial arts. I had my first fight at 21.
Okay.
And so from 19 to 21, like I had some kickboxing matches and whatnot, but I would always like drop in on a class or two, maybe a month, and then I would take, there'd be times where I'd take a couple months off because I didn't really like it. I like to focus on striking in the beginning, 19, 20. And besides, my coach was, he's like, you don't need that jiu-jitsu stuff. He's like, you just need to hit the person for MMA. And at the time, it's like you worship your coach. And I'm like, that's not bad advice. Like, that's great. And so I had 5 fights. I fought 3 of my 5 MMA fights as a white belt. And let me tell you, that did not go well. But I would drop in on those classes. And then at 22, when I actually started consistently, in 4 months consistently, I got my blue belt.
Okay, that makes sense, man. Like, don't get me wrong. I've, as a coach, and having guys come to Island, from somewhere else, I never promoted somebody to that next belt until they reached like what was my standard. You know what I mean? But I also I never held it against somebody for showing up with another belt. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like, somebody thought you deserved it. Because here's a good example. One of my buddies, he showed up and he had trained before, and I knew that he had said that he had done jiu-jitsu before, but he's a white belt. And but we grappled, and I was like, this dude is not brand new. You know what I mean? Like, he's not brand new at all. And but I didn't say anything. And then as he got more comfortable, the rounds started getting better. So, finally, I started hanging out with him a little bit, and we were sitting at the brewery, and I was like, all right, dude, seriously, how long have you been training? And he was like, all right, I'm gonna tell you the truth. He's like, I was a 2-stripe white belt. I took the stripes off when I showed up to your gym. And I was like, why? He's like, well, he didn't really have a good reason. He just didn't want to be like, I know things, kind of and I was like, dude, somebody somebody thought you deserved those stripes, dude. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not going to argue with it. So let's get those back on. And the guy that we talked about earlier, Ernie, he did the same thing. He showed up at my gym with no stripes on his belt. And I was like, we grappled and I was like, what is this? You know? But he told me, he's like, man, I didn't know how it worked from gym to gym. And he's like, the first gym I trained at, I think he actually started at Alliance in Brazil. And he's like, right, like before I was supposed to get my first stripe, because they're very regimented on their scheduling on how they promote. He's like, right before I got my first stripe, I had to go back to the States to go to work. He's like, then I joined a gym close to the house and I got 2 stripes from that guy, you know, after being there for so long. And then he showed up at my gym with no stripes. I'm like, dude, you're a 3-stripe white belt. Like, and I wouldn't even argue that. Like, and you should never, somebody thought you deserved that. Like, this isn't you lying about being a black belt. You know what I mean? Like, these are those white belt stripes, dude. Like, but you know, it's the same thing to me as like dealing with somebody who had wrestled, you know, like I would say, I kind of tell everybody, get ready to sit on each belt for 2 years. That's just kind of my number that I throw out just to kind of avoid the conversation. Right. You know what I'm saying? But like, dude, I'm not making some dude who comes in, trains regularly, has some natural ability or came in with some wrestling or came in doing MMA, you know, and like, I'm not going to not promote that dude, you know, when he deserves it. Cause I feel like it's supposed to be when you deserve it.
Right. It's, and I do think, you know, it's like to a degree, every, like, you know, the color belts moving up and the stripes is definitely like to a degree merit based. You know, are you a white belt that is giving every single blue belt in the room like a run for their money or tapping them out consistently? You know, it's like, oh, I've only been training 6 months. It's like, yeah, but you're actually showing proficiency, and people that have been doing it 2 and 3 times as long, or, you know, than you are having trouble. You know, I can't keep you at a white belt, you know? So I completely get it. I don't know. Oddly enough, at my gym, we don't stripe the white belts. We like the blue belt to be a surprise, you know, and then obviously we stripe every other belt.
So I've gone back and forth about stripes, no stripes. And on island, it was funny. I put one of the guys that trains down there, he's from the island, but had spent like 10 years in the States. And when he moved back to the island, he was a blue belt. And I put his first stripe on his belt and he was like, so what does this mean? And I laughed because I had no stripes on my white belt. And then I'd been a blue belt for a couple years before I was at a gym that decided they were going to put a stripe on that belt. And I was like, honestly at that point, because, you know, as a blue belt, like I was hunting belts, you know what I mean? Like I was hunting down the belts real hard. And
I don't think there's a single person that hasn't thought that, you know, it's like, oh man, I want that purple belt or I want that stripe.
You know, after being a blue belt for like 2 years by that point, and then somebody stuck one stripe on it, I was like, oh, I know what that means. Oh, that sucks. You know, and you know, it doesn't matter now. I mean, I ended up spending 5.5 years at blue, you know, and I spent, I think I spent 3 at purple. I lose track. Like it's been 15 years. Like, so I've been a brown belt for like 3 years now.
Yeah. It's a lot of time.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But Josh, last February when I came up, and we all stayed in the Airbnb by Josh.
Yep.
He put 4 stripes on my belt then. So I mean, my black belt's somewhere around the corner, you know, and I'm sure a big part of it has to do with just like getting time in with Josh and seeing Josh, you know, but like getting moved up here to the States has just trying to get settled, and it's been tough. It's better. It's a better situation for us for sure, but just like getting settled has been such a pain in the ass.
It's a lot of work. I can't imagine moving. Like, so I moved one town over, and that consumed months of time just to get everything set. I can't imagine moving countries, you know, massive geographical location difference, you know. So, I mean, kudos to you for making it work. My
sinuses have been jacked up like 3 times since August. Like, and I just spent the last 6 years like almost never getting sick.
It's all that
You know,
pollen,
but like this cold weather and the pollen, like it's just, you know, and then I got a kid too, you know, so he's a little snotty little kid, you know, like, so, and you know how kids are, they'll rub their nose and stick their hand in your mouth.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He's so disrespectful. He's such a bully. Okay. So I did want to ask, so, your gym is located in Camden?
So it's kind of it's interesting because it's two towns smushed up against one another. There's Kingsland and St. Mary's, and then the whole area. So there's Woodbine, Kingsland, and St. Mary's that are enveloping in like Camden County. So a lot of people, it's funny. It's like when I tell people that I'm from Camden County, they're like, "Oh, you're from New Jersey?" Nah, Georgia. You know, because Camden County, New Jersey is you know quite large, and the grappling scene up there is, believe it or not, actually pretty big. And so, you know, while it's flattering to get confused for that, it's we're trying to get there with Georgia, you know. But yeah, we're right on over the St. Mary's line. So I live in Kingsland, the gym is in St. Mary's, and if you were to put a pin in like the most southeast tip of Georgia, that's where we are.
Okay. So how long ago did you open your gym?
So we started in June of 2021. So we're almost at the 3-year mark.
Oh, not congratulations, dude.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how far were you traveling to train before you opened your gym?
So when we lived in Brunswick, we went to the academy that I trained at for, oh man, yeah, until 2021, I trained at consistently for that entire time from 14 to 21. I trained at the Brunswick school that was in the downtown of that area, and it would normally take about 15 minutes to get there. And then when we opened our school, the one-way commute was 35 minutes. So not bad. And now, when we moved down to Kingsland, my commute is now 5 minutes. And it's
that's so rad. I would say, so I lived, the last 2 places I lived on island, one was literally like I could walk down to the gym if I wanted to. But it was really steep hill, and I didn't want to walk back up it after training, so I would drive. But and then the next place I lived still wasn't very far from the gym. So like getting here, like right now, so I live in Seneca. My gym is in Walhalla, and my wife works. So Ashley just started a job at Clemson University in their outdoor lab.
Nice.
So that's about 25 minutes away from here. And then the gym is about 25 minutes away from here. So I literally have to like run and go pick her up from work, get home, drop her and Ezra off, and leave and drive straight to Walhalla to go teach, and pretty much walk in like 5 to 10 minutes before I'm supposed to start class right now. But like that 25-minute drive, at first I was like, dude, this sucks so bad because I've just been I've been in this little bitty place with close proximity, you know, but I really got into listening to podcasts. So I get like 25 minutes to listen to a podcast and 25 minutes home. So I get 40 minutes of podcast time, you know, so and I can finish like, you know, a Joe Rogan experience in like a week, you know, like, or just like these hour-long podcasts in like 2 or 3 drives, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
So, okay. So you got the gym, you've been open for 3 years. And then we were talking about Schismatic Industries just the other day. So you started Schismatic Industries around that same time, right?
No, I've actually had that the clothing company since the latter part, December of 2018.
2018, okay.
So I don't no, excuse me, 2019. We started in 2019. Like I think I got the LLC formation, like the business was actually created in anywhere from October to December of 2019. And then oddly enough, I got my first shipment like I did. I try not to do like pre-orders, but I still was like, all right, we're going to run this as a small batch company. and I got all of my gis and rash guards first runs in the beginning of March of 2020. So you can imagine how that first year went for getting a clothing company started. wasn't great. So
Yeah.
um,
How long did it take you to fulfill like a second run? I mean, were you just like not able to get anything after that?
So for the most part, it's I gave most things away. Like I was very heavily supported by like the local grappling community, my
Mhm.
gyms. Like, they're like, hey, one of our friends is starting a clothing company. They helped out immensely, and that was really what helped get us started. Like without them, that would have been really tough, to kind of take off. But sending stuff to people to try out, and I think our designs, they weren't the best in the beginning, but they still look, okay enough for people to not be like super embarrassed wearing them out in public. um Slowly but surely people garnered interest, and then there was a lot of work to do, like on social media, getting out, because that's, I mean, every company's got to advertise on that nowadays. So just filling the content and getting pictures, and it's such a slow start at first, but then when the snowball starts,
Right.
rolling, it gets quicker and quicker. Um, like I think I was at the 2.5 or 3 year mark before I was actually able to pay a bill with the company. And
Okay.
then now, after that, within I think 6 months after that, like first bill pay, it snowballed enough to where I was like, I quit my job at the hospital. So I was a nurse before everything,
Okay.
before starting the school, schismatic. So it was a long haul. I think the first we got rid of, I say we got rid of, we sold our gis, I think within 6 to 8 months. There weren't that many of them. And then our rash guards, I think I still had some in stock a year and a half into it because I ordered more of those. So it, we got to the point where we could do more designs. Like we didn't have to sell them all before doing another run. And then it got to the point where it's like, the overhead, uh, just being a smaller company, we switched to pre-orders for a while, and that lasted for about 3 years. And now we're to the point where we're ordering everything outright. So there's no more waiting for your stuff,
Right.
which was a big goal. Like even probably more than like, being able to support yourself on this business is like, now I get to run it the way that I want to run it. That I can give the best to, the customers that are waiting. Because it used to be you'd have to wait 4 to 6 weeks, for a rash guard to come in. It's still that way. It's like if you order
Yeah.
from a school, but that's because we discuss the design and then order. But
Yeah.
but actually
But
like
it takes
getting,
time.
yeah, and it's all part of the process, and they got it all turned out. So I'm very happy with how things are going now. But it was
That's
definitely
awesome.
an uphill battle for a long time.
That's awesome. Um, so gym owner, your dad too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
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 Gym owner, husband, dad. Then y'all also have schismatic, dude. That's a lot. Like, how do y'all juggle all that?
So I don't think we would be able to if my wife was not, you know, uh, into jujitsu like she is. 'Cause like
Right.
I said, she's the one that got me into. She's a first degree black belt and has been training for as long as you have, 15 years. Uh, and so she like this is how I get away with being a competitor. It's how I get away with finding time to design stuff and whatnot, because she takes a lot of the load for the gym, and she also helps with designs. And so like both being in the same direction, like we're working towards the same goal and the same things, you
Mhm.
know, um, helps a lot. If it was just me or just her, like if she had a different job and I was just trying to juggle this, there'd be no way. So
Yeah.
so it helps,
That's
and
awesome.
I'm very thankful for her for that. So that's why it's like, I try to give her as much credit as possible on posts. Like, actually this t-shirt, or I'm mirrored, this one, mystical leopard, that was all her design. That was all her, and that was actually one of our best designs to date, as far as like just demand for it. It was great, but that was all her. She's like, those Lisa Frank folders that we had as kids back in the 90s. I was like, yeah, I remember that. You should do a rash guard like that. And, so we sat down and
that's
did it.
bad.
So, oh yeah.
That's so funny because I look at a lot of it like 80s and 90s like streetwear to get inspiration from.
Well, and it's like jiu-jitsu, it's like my wife gets so annoyed because I talk about jiu-jitsu constantly, but because I've been doing it less time
but
than
like,
her, it's still fun for me,
What else are we supposed to talk about?
I know, like literally everything in our life revolves around it. But it's stuff comes back in cycles. It's like now the 90s, not everything 90s is coming back. Just like like styles of jiu-jitsu, close guard, K guard, all that stuff's coming back in. Whereas back a couple years ago it was everything leg locks. Now it's pressure passing and all this other stuff. It just makes it.
Hold on, I'm sorry. You think close guard is coming back in?
I think because look at Jacob Couch's run at East Coast ADCC trials. Like he played a lot of close guard and K guard, and he was demolishing people with it.
Okay.
K
guard.
Maybe it's not coming back.
I've just started like playing in with K guard a little bit, like looking at it because my leg locks are trash. So I've been fixing that. Man, I hit this kick recently where I think close guard is trash, and like I'm not really teaching it. Like we discuss it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I've only ever I stopped a few years ago. I stopped using my close guard for submissions and only used it to sweep people or like get back into an open guard. And it's because when I first moved to the island, a lot of the guys that train with me were like heavier than me.
Right.
Because I was like 175 back then. And like
tiny.
Bro, I think when you saw me in October, I was probably 210. I'm somewhere between 205, 210 right now. But I was like 175 pounds back then. Like, so I would get stacked. And like my neck and shoulder, were just destroyed. And so I was like, that's it. I can't unless I'm bigger than you. Which helps a little bit because I am over 200 pounds now. Like, unless I'm bigger than you, I'm probably not going to try to submit you from my guard. I'm going to sweep you because
it's definitely tougher with the submissions. Like Mary is, I think, 130 pounds soaking wet. She's 4'11". Her playing close guard, she'll play open guard rather than rather than close. But she will definitely submit or sweep from there rather than submit.
But I think that was also a good move for me because as a white belt, all I ever did was recover close guard and then hang on to people. I wouldn't even really try to submit them. Like all my submissions came from people making mistakes,
right?
And me learning how to capitalize on that. But I didn't have any good like solid like attacks. Like I wasn't really good at like I didn't get good collar grips until like purple belt. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't good at like gi chokes until like purple belt because now I understood the grips better, whereas like as a white belt and blue belt, it was just for survival.
Right.
Like I would close my guard and then I wouldn't let you open it, which I think I look back now and it really kind of stunted my jiu-jitsu growth. I wasn't really willing to make mistakes back then. And which is something that like I'm super adamant now as a coach. Like we were drilling, we were working it's like spider web control last night. And I was like, all right, guy on top, like you need to stay control, you need to keep your hips attached to this dude's shoulder and you need to try to separate his hands and get the sub. Guy on bottom, I really want you to escape. And I sat there and I was like, now I don't want you to just connect your hands and fight this off. I need you to try to get out. Just hanging on is not going to get you out of here. So we put a lot of emphasis on the escape last night. And that's because like, I was telling like, you're going to get subbed. You're going to get subbed as you try to escape this. It's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. But like, I'd rather see you get subbed trying to escape than just sit here and practice your grip strength exercises, because that's the stuff that I did because I just didn't want to lose, like there was no emphasis in my coming up on the gym is for training. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I could say that I'd be like the gym is for training, but like I was also trying not to lose.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't helping myself get better. And so like now I'm like the emphasis as a coach, I'm very much like, we are here to get better.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. But that's good. You teach that way because you're learning from your past,
Right.
past mistake. I hate calling them mistakes because they're honest. It's like that's if no one tells you any
It's
different.
It's just learning from my past.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Your
just
experience. Because I was the same way.
Yeah.
Like I was 100% like I am not going to get submitted tonight as a blue belt. Like come on. And then I would go home. I would ride home with like no radio on, and be like, I suck at this. This is terrible.
It's funny because I've definitely been that way. Like you're like, this is what I'm going to do tonight. I'm like, I'm gonna hit this submission as many times as possible. I'm gonna hit this sweep. Back on Thanksgiving, I went to an open mat close to me, and on the way there, I was like, all right, today I'm going to tap faster than any time I've ever trained in my life. Like I was like, I'm not fighting any submissions out. It gets locked in, I'm tapping. Like that was literally the goal for the day, because it was like, I just don't feel like having my arms ripped on or anything like that. Or, like I don't want to walk out of here jacked up. And oddly enough, I still got injured.
No.
It was my fault. It was my fault. I was rolling with this dude. He was kind of spazzy, but he's a blue belt. And he threw this arm bar on me, and I should have verbally tapped. But as my arm went straight, because he wasn't like fighting, he wasn't cranking on anything, my second hand went out to go tap. And as I went to tap is when he hipped through it. So like, yeah, it got it. He hit it rough.
Yeah. And
like, so I tapped or whatever. And it was funny because like, I kind of had forgotten, but my elbow's been killing me.
Man.
And my wife is the one that was like, sometimes, I got, she's talking about, she got her elbow kind of hyperextended at a tournament one time when she was a white belt. And she's like, it took months. And I was like, that's why my elbow hurts. It's from Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm
retracing your steps.
Yeah, you have to, because I was like, I haven't been armbarred. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, all my guys are brand new. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I've had to tap to any of them yet. Like, because there's a huge skill difference between the two of us. Although they are getting really good at passing the guard.
That's
like,
good. Man,
insanely good.
That is a very important skill. My goodness, I wish I had more emphasis.
So I've recently, I've always had the ideas of like different belt levels, like on how I envisioned it, and I've been doing a lot of the ecological dynamics with this program, with like the stuff that Greg Souders is doing and all the games. It's mostly just games, and I don't do any static drilling at all. And which has been the most fun I have ever had coaching ever. And my knowledge of jiu-jitsu is elevating quite a bit because I'm having to have a much deeper understanding of different positions and how we do things to formulate these games.
Nice.
Because I have to give very specific tasks. So I'm having the best time. But guard passing. I read a post maybe a couple months ago that said your guard is just a combination of hooks, posts, and grips. And I talked about this with Sean Dougherty, like on what that kind of did to me mentally, because when I heard it that simply, all of a sudden I was like, so I remember the first time somebody put me in De La Riva and being like, what is this? And then somebody's like, oh, that's De La Riva guard. I'm like, so now I got to know De La Riva guard passes, or, somebody puts me in X guard. Now I got to learn X guard passes. And I had this mentality that I had to know passes for every individual guard. And I had to it had to be specific. And once I understood that your guard is just a combination of hooks, posts, and grips, I was like, so you're telling me all I have to do is remove these things. That's it.
Yep.
Like, that's all I have to do. And so I've pushed that in my students. Like, don't let them put their hands on you. Don't let them put their feet on you. And we play the game where sometimes I'm only trying to advance past your feet and to allow you to work your guard work as I constantly remove these grips and these hooks and these posts. And because of that, I can only sweep my students if I can actually bring them all the way in and get like upper body control. Like I can't lock in to like, it's so hard to lock in on like single leg X or X guard or De La Hiva because they're like, no, not having it. And it's just increased their guard passing like insanely because I've just made it in my head like really simple.
Yeah.
But my white belts only have to know how to pass the guard, wrestle a little bit, and pin people.
I think it's definitely like human nature, and especially like, doubly so in jiu-jitsu, because we tend to overthink things and make it, more than what it is. It's just the unknown. It's like we don't know all the variables. Like when you De La Hiva guard, what is this? What do I got to do to pass this? And you're coming up with all these ideas and what ifs and stuff like that when it's really, like you said, just hook a post and a grip.
Yeah.
And now it's like you've got great minds and coaches in jiu-jitsu that are able to simplify it back down. It's like think about it and just make it a more, I guess, digestible or easily processed process, for jiu-jitsu. And I definitely appreciate that because I'm not too smart. I like simple.
I talked a little bit about this in the last podcast, but like, Josh, you've trained with Josh,
Okay.
Leduc. So he teaches in a flow. Dude, I can't put those things together. I just like my mind just doesn't work that way, and I love it. I got no problem training with him. I'm into it. I learn stuff every time I train with him that sticks well. I just can't seem to formulate that out for myself. My brain just doesn't seem to want to put it together. And but this way, things make sense. Kit Dale said something that helped me a lot too. Cause it's funny. I remember being a blue belt and hearing about Kit Dale, who was this brown or black belt at the time. And he's like, I don't drill, everything's concepts. And, back then I was like, this guy's trash without really being like, I don't know how he got, I'm just completely disrespecting his rank at that point. Like somebody thought he deserved that. And here I am, how blue belts are. We know everything, we're right,
Yep.
And so I'm just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You can't learn this way. You can't learn this way. But he said something that, man, he said, if I have to show you the technique more than twice, you're not ready for it. You don't understand the positioning. And so I sat on that for a minute. I was like, because as I started looking into this teaching, like this training approach, like I really just was like, I didn't argue. Like it's probably like the first time in my life I was like, this guy's wrong. And then like I just started paying attention. I was like, okay, let me see what I want to hear what people have that are against it. I want to hear what they say.
What's such a bold statement,
Yeah.
Out of the norm.
Right. But this is what happened. This is what worked in my head. I thought about all of the times through my jiu-jitsu, right? Especially like after purple belt, when somebody gives you that one detail to a move that you do, and you're like, it was the game changer. You know what I'm saying? It was like, if you move 1 inch this way, this happens. And you're like, why didn't anybody tell me that 6 years ago? And the reason is because they may have. You know what I'm saying? It may have been too many details for me to take in at one time.
I just wasn't ready for that level
yet. I wasn't ready. Whereas like so I can give you an example. Like, so my leg lock entries, not great. That's what I'm working on the most. But my comfort level with understanding what's happening in jiu-jitsu, the first time I had somebody show me the breaking mechanics of like an inside heel hook, that was no problem. Like for me to comprehend and understand what actually has to be done. Like I didn't have to like, okay, I got to go drill this 30 times. Like I understand how to break things. So it was really easy for me to understand.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Danaher offers little details on the rear naked strangle, you know, it's like, especially with like one arm, bro. I watched that and I didn't have to drill that at all. Like I was on a dude's back that night, one-handed, boom, done. You know what I'm saying? Because I understand everything else that goes that's involved with being on somebody's back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it, to me, that Kit Dale phrase made me go, okay, so as a coach and as somebody who's teaching brand new people, I need to make sure that I have them comfortable in these positions before I add the submission to it. Or, you know, like we've worked on Kimuras, but I haven't gone into like the breaking mechanics on how to actually break that arm.
Right.
We talk more about it's just twisting the arm. Right. And, you know, you can get somebody to tap just by cramming their hand up to the back of their head. You know what I mean? You know, especially me, because my shoulders don't want to move. But I won't show them how to actually break it until they're hitting it regularly. Yeah. And then we'll go in because they're going to be so comfortable with the positioning in general. Like, all right, let's make it stronger. You know what I mean? So I'm so much more into the positioning now before we get into like the extra details that I honestly like. I love those little details that make things work really smoothly and really strongly, you know?
Well, and it's funny you're saying all this because, and from what we were talking about before, how, you know, older things come back in, because when I was a white belt, I heard this probably more, like I still hear it and I cringe because I'm like, I heard this so much. It's so cliche. Position before submission. And I will say that to my white belts, and it's like, this is exactly what you're saying right now. It's like, okay, you don't understand the position. I mean, and it's kind of used in a different context too. It's like, so it's, you know, if you don't understand the position, you're not going to understand the submission, rather than like in the beginning, it's meant to, if you don't have the position, you're not going to have the submission, you know, so it's a little different, but it's largely the same. And it's funny how long it takes for something to sink in. How come no one told me this? I did. You weren't ready. You know, so I definitely agree, you know, and it's an interesting concept on that for sure. And yeah, if you're, and I think of it like this, if you're just putting random pieces together, it's like, you're never going to understand the whole. Like, you know, you can show somebody a Kimura, you can show somebody an armbar, but unless you know, show an inside heel hook, you know. But if they don't understand how to get there, or like what positioning they're going to need, those details don't even matter.
If you can't control the leg, right? Like when you're heel hooking somebody, if you can't control the leg, they're going to pull it out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you can't control the leg, you can't break it. Yep. So I spend more time on that aspect of control. You know, it's going back to like what you said, the position before submission. I liken Jiu-Jitsu belts to growing up. You know, like blue belts are your preteens, you know, like they want to be taken seriously and they think they know everything. They're sassy. That's it, you know. But I remember the position before submission and be like, that's trash. Yeah. I don't want to hear that. And the reason you don't want to hear that is because submissions are fun and controlling somebody is hard.
Right.
And we don't want to do the hard work. Right. I listened to a podcast. Do you know who Preet Michelson is? Michelson?
I do not.
Okay, so he's from Estonia. He's very involved with BJJ Globetrotters, and he's got a website called Defensive BJJ. I was listening to a podcast the other day. He's super intelligent dude. He does a lot of like odd stuff in jiu-jitsu that's highly effective for the most part that I can tell. And I know a lot of people that speak very highly of using a lot of his stuff. I found out that his beginners program at his gym is 20 classes. And you cannot join the regular class until you've done the beginners program. They teach nothing but submissions. And like, yeah, my face did that exact same thing when I heard this, but check this out. This is the explanation.
That's a 180 flip from what we just talked about.
I know. So he also uses ecological dynamics. So everything is games. It's all game-based training. Okay. So they teach 20 different submissions. So one new submission every class. He's like, we don't talk about passing the guard and why you need to do that. You know, and he gave a bunch of reasons, but this is what he said. And I kind of enjoyed this. First off, submissions are fun. And that's what people want to learn at the beginning. So this is a big part of retention. He's using it as a way of membership retention. But this is where it got interesting. He goes, when somebody does rolls for the first time, right? They don't always know when to tap. They also don't know. Sometimes you ever train with that person who is brand new that doesn't let go of submissions fast enough?
Ooh,
because
not many, fortunately. I'm still
I've watched it. I see it in little kids a lot. You know, I have to stand over the kids. You know what I'm saying? So he said that. He goes, so what happens is these new people join the regular class, they roll with somebody who's been there for a while, and they either they get hurt because they don't know that they're in danger and they don't tap fast enough, or they hurt somebody else because they have no experience with how hurtful it is. I've dealt with a lot of white belts where like you're drilling a submission and you tap and they're like, was that it? Did that work? Because they don't understand what they're actually doing to you and why you had to tap. So he said that when they go from the beginners program in their 20 classes, and Sean, it's like he's teaching inside heel hook, outside heel hook, darces, like he's teaching 20 different submissions that like in a handful of submissions that we grew up being like, you don't do that to white belts. When they move in to the regular class, one, they tap fast when they're getting submitted because they have experience in being submitted. So they're not getting hurt. Yeah. Two, they're not hurting anybody else because they have that experience on letting go for the tapping. And he said this, he goes, dude, I roll with somebody who just moves into the, like our regular class. And if a submission presents itself, they jump on it. But now in this regular class, now they're learning why we pass the guard. If you want to do these submissions, you need to pass the guard. You need to get chest to chest and stuff like that. And I was like, that's kind of fun. I don't know if I can do it, but it's kind of fun. And I think also you got to have a program big enough to have that kind of like beginners program.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I thought it was a really cool idea.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it makes it, and it's interesting. It's like, even though they're just polar opposites of like what we, just talked about is like one end of the spectrum and the other, they both make a lot of sense. It's like when you put the framework in and like, okay, this is why we're doing this, it's both ways are, I mean, if it's working for him, it's definitely viable,
And he's very much like, if it didn't work, we'll change it. He doesn't have that kind of attitude like this is the way. He's like, right. If we feel like it's not working, we're gonna change.
But that's a good coach versus a bad coach. It's right. I can't tell you how many times that my perspective has changed on something that one of my blue belts will show me, and be like, I didn't know this, because I've got some nerds that I train with, and they're always, and I try to be in it too, they're always watching videos, they're always, keeping up with the meta of jiu-jitsu, and that's definitely the coach that I want to be, and they've helped me out with that, and they'll show me something different or show me what somebody said, and I was like, that's really interesting. Okay, well, we'll change that. Obviously, if it's wrong, it's wrong. It's right. Like, this is how you do a Kimura, and their grips are backwards. Like, all right, you're an idiot. Right. But as far as like conceptual teaching, or like, hey, here's this entry that somebody showed that's very similar to what you're doing. It's like, oh wow, that might actually work better. Keeping an open mind with a lot of stuff, I think, is what a lot of the old school people had trouble with. Because they were the authority, but now the access of information, I think that's also why, we're getting fast black belts, and I might be a part of that as well. Just the access of information for me. Like when I started, there was 4 or 5 black belts on the mat every night. I could ask them questions. I was amazing. Training with everybody that was, higher level than I was. YouTube, BJJ Fanatics, was out. It's like when you and Mary started 15 years ago, it was seeing a purple belt was like a unicorn. The information was not there.
My first coach was a purple belt.
Yeah. Yeah. Her first coach was a blue. That's how small this is, because you got to think it's like we're middle of nowhere, Georgia.
Yeah.
And even so, it's like now okay, I can barely almost, so let's see if I can count here. So my wife, myself, there's 3 black belts at another school, another black belt at another school, and then 2 black belts on base, just in our small town of St. Mary's alone. You know, you got them everywhere. I mean, so the sport's definitely growing, and it's like that snowball. It's like in the beginning, yeah, Gracie's coming in, showing some people, and then it's like you had to travel to actually go to like a reputable coach, back a long time ago, and now it's easy to find a school, which is amazing. I mean, that's how we want it to be, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right, dude. We got I got just a few minutes left. So what's the next steps? What's your next steps for Schismatic? What do you have planned for them?
Man, I've been so busy designing for schools that I have not hammered down one design, but I am thinking Hawaiian and guns or dinosaurs. Like, yes, that would be great. Like floral
dinosaurs with guns on a Hawaiian print. Is that what you just said?
It could be, man. I'm letting the autism guide this one, so I'm leaning in. So it's the dinosaurs. Like so a buddy of mine is a really good artist, and believe it or not, he was my sparring partner for years. He has made me lose countless brain cells from punching me in the face. But he decided to get into painting a couple years ago.
Nice.
And now he's fantastic at it. Like never painted
That's
before. So it's Eaton Designs if you ever look it up. But he painted this T-Rex skull, and I was like, I want that. Can you make that digital for me, and I'll pay you for it? And he goes, yeah, man. And I was like, I got it. Now I've just been sitting on it, and I'm going to build a design around it. I don't know. It could be dinosaurs and guns. It could be, could be floral and guns. You can tell I'm from Georgia, right?
Yeah. No, I will say that, like, when we moved back to the States, we didn't want to go back to Texas. I love that I'm still in the South. Like, I love it. like everybody's got guns here. It's guns and boots, and I'm like,
it's like I feel
this
safe.
is where I belong. It's safe. Like the only thing I'm missing right now is I really want a motorcycle again.
Oh, me too. Oh gosh, I think that's just being a dude.
Yeah, dude.
I need a motorcycle.
It's gorgeous here, man. Like I'm surrounded by like three different lakes. There's mountains everywhere. You know what I mean? Like I just want to cruise through it. Okay, so and then competition wise, what do you got coming up?
Man, all right. So I have Summit Grappling in 2 weeks. In 3 weeks, I shoot down to Miami for combat sports coverage. And then in March, at the end of March, is West Coast Trials. We just previous weekend, this is I promised my wife it'd be a lighter competition year, and it's already ramping up, so I feel kind of bad. But last weekend we did Ledukes, and then the Zapatero finishers, Midwest finishers, and Enigma. That card was
so rad.
Historic.
Hey, congratulations on that heel hook finish. That was dope.
Thank you. So funny story is, so I heard actually some really, so Adrian Nez and Max Hansen were talking, and they gave me, honestly, I was a fly on the wall, and it was great. It was like I was talking with Nez a little bit about just overthinking moves, and I heard Max say to Nez, he's like, when you play, that is when you do your best. And I was like, nerves gone. All right, let's just go out there and let's play. And I was relaxed, and I felt way better. And then when he neon bellied me, I was like, let's try some rolling shit, and ended up in 50, like backside 50-50. And the rest was history. It was awesome. But to be honest with you, I don't remember a lot of my matches when they happen. I don't remember rolling to backside 50-50 until I watched the video. Like I had a student, a good friend of mine, he texted me after, he's like, man, that was really cool backside 50-50 entry. I was like, what? Yeah. Like I remember 50-50 in the heel hook grip. I don't remember before that. Right. But I do remember just being really calm and not being afraid to like try different stuff and just having fun. And that little piece of information was like,
Dude,
Huh.
the people you surround yourself with,
Yeah.
And even when you didn't know that's who was going to be around, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's so beneficial, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. Sean, thank you so much, dude, for being here, man. And we're definitely going to do this again. Like, I want to keep having people on that I like talking to anyway. So.